What's up, guys? This is YeahBuoy. This is the second video in a series of 4 where I teach the best strategy for the Golden Channel map in World of Warships Blitz. Something that remains the same for every class is that your main objective is to capture the target area. For destroyers, cruisers, and battleships, the #1 most important and fundamental strategy is to go straight to the target area. Treat this as a personal goal rather than a team goal. If you want to win, you cannot rely on your teammates to follow the objective if you do not either. That means do not sail around the target area, go into the target area. Aircraft carrier is the only class that should avoid entering the target area unless you know what you are doing, which I'll show you later when I bring my carrier into the target area. Now let's look at some strategies for cruisers. The first match was in a tier 7 Mayoko. The second match is in a tier 8 Takao. The most important strategy for a cruiser is to go straight into the target area. There are usually destroyers on the front lines, so be prepared to fire at them and dodge their torpedoes. Whatever you do, do not turn full broadside once you enter the target area. If you have torpedoes, be patient and use them when the time is right. Focus on controlling the zone. There's plenty of time to get damage. At 2.5 minutes left, I had less than 20,000 damage, but I found my opportunity, so I went for it. I sent torpedoes from my right side, then turned to fire off on my left side. Normally, I would never recommend showing full broadside like this, but when you have this kind of opportunity without much pressure from the enemies, you have to take it. So then it became an easy win because 3 of the enemies were sightseeing on the edge of the map. Look at the time lapse. Notice how only half of the enemy team showed up to the target area, while the other half went sightseeing. The enemies actually started taking control of the zone, but had no support from half of their teammates. If you want to win, get in the target area with your other teammates. I want you to notice what happens here. Skippy Jones was abandoned by his teammates. He was the only one on his team still trying to play the game. Notice what he does. He was fleeing to avoid getting sunk like most people would in his situation, but instead of sailing to his teammates on the outside of the map, he turned around and headed back to the target area. Why? Because he knew that his teammates were in the wrong position. They weren't trying to win, but he was. So he went back toward the target area. He was following the right strategy. His teammates weren't. His teammates were in a spot they should never be in. The only time you should ever go after enemies on the outside of the map, like I'm about to do, is if your victory is already in the bag. We had about 40 seconds left with a 500-point lead, so it's okay to leave the target area in situations like this. But just look at how much health these enemies had. This was a real shame. They should have never been back here. If you want to win, get to the target area and fight for it. Otherwise, you're abandoning your team and practically guaranteeing your loss. This third match is in a tier 9 Ibuki. The first thing I did was get to the target area. Once I saw the enemy destroyer, I backed up to dodge their torpedoes, then went back into the target area. Now I want to show you why it's so important to stay with your team and defend the target area. Look at the minimap. This is a few seconds ago when I backed up to dodge the torpedoes. A few enemies took control of the target area, but look at where their teammates were. They were on opposite sides of the map and headed away from the target area. Because of this, my team took control of the target area, and the enemies that were left to defend it had 0 support. So all that was left was to hunt down the remaining enemies as they dispersed to the edges of the map. One more strategy you need to know as a cruiser is how to bait and dodge torpedoes. Look at this destroyer coming around the island. You can bet your ship he launched his torpedoes, so start dodging his torpedo paths ahead of time. Always remember that a cruiser is a destroyer hunter. Yes, you can target other ships, but destroyers should always run from you rather than you run from them.
Precise aim activated. We're hit. Torpedoes! Destroyed an enemy ship. Enemy aircraft incoming. Good job. We destroyed an enemy ship.
Here's a match in a Tier 8 Wichita. Notice where I am. The enemy team captured the target area, so I came in to try to get it back. But I knew I needed my team, so I looked around like, hello, let's capture the target area. We were losing, but watch what happens next. This is something to learn from. The enemy team controlled the target area, but look at the minimap. This guy's team completely abandoned him. He was all alone in the target area. So he's like, hey guys, wait for me. I want to see the edges of the map as well. Take me with you to that faraway land out there. And he sails away. So we take control of the target area and then start winning. Look at them sailing around the edge of the map. Why? You literally have no business being over there unless it's the end of the match and you're searching for the remaining enemies. If you see enemy players go over there at the beginning or middle of the match, ignore them. Let them go. Allow them to voluntarily remove themselves from the game for the next few minutes as they sail away to nowhere land. But of course, if it's the end of the match, go ahead and get them. Now here's a match where I sunk all 7 enemies in a Tier 6 Nuremberg. Keep an eye on where I am on the map. I'm almost always inside the target area. That is where you want to be.
Destroyed an enemy ship. Enemy ship destroyed. Destroyed an enemy ship. Enemy ship destroyed.
Affirmative.
Destroyed an enemy ship.
If you want to see the full match, I'll leave a link in the description. In this last clip, I'm going to show you what not to do. I was in a Tier 8 Takao and feeling very risky, so I followed a bad strategy to see if it would work out. And it did work out, but I would never do this again, so let me explain why. I went straight to the target area like I should, but then I showed full broadside as I sailed to the left around the island. If you do this in a cruiser these days, you will likely lose half of your health before you get to the other side. Luckily for us, the first enemy we saw here in the target area was a bot cruiser, so I didn't have to worry about them. And the second enemy was a bot battleship, but if those two were humans, I would have been sunk by now. So I sailed up to the island on the enemy side and waited for an enemy to come around the corner. My goal was to sink them very quickly with a wall of torpedoes since I had 8 on each side, but here's the problem. They have guns and torpedoes too, and they weren't just gonna sink without a fight, so I ended up losing a ton of health really quickly. I was stuck in a vulnerable position with no way to safely get out of there.
Nice shot.
Look at how little health I had left after fighting only 1 human so far. Yes, I dodged 5 of his 6 torpedoes, but I lost about 80% of my health and was not in a good position to help my team win. I got extremely lucky that the second Prince Eugen didn't come around the corner ready to fire at me, because he could have sunk me with only 1 salvo. Then I got extremely lucky again when I went after this third Prince Eugen.
No way.
I showed him my full broadside before I turned to get off my torpedoes on my left side. It looked like he was busy launching his torpedoes, but again, he could have sunk me with 1 salvo before I even turned to launch my torpedoes. I hope you see very clearly why this was a bad strategy. I got 103,000 damage, but I can almost guarantee that if I tried this again, I would get sunk with like 10,000 damage. So get in the target area, but don't do anything stupid. Be smart and be patient. Don't go full broadside. Don't sail around the edge of the target area. Don't sail to the edge of the map. Get in the target area. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I'm making the battleship and aircraft carrier guide for this map next. If you want some awesome YeahBuoy merchandise, check for a link in the description. I'll catch you guys next time.